Welcome to my channel and my Index Card a Day 2023 series. In today's video, I'm going to create this lovely sea-themed ICAD, and I'm going to talk about the tips and tricks when working with prompts. Here's a week's prompt that Daisy Yellow gives us in this challenge. The purpose is to inspire us, to get us to create. And if a prompt is doing that, I go with it. If the prompt does not, I give myself permission to omit it, to skip it. With sea glass, I could go with the color, the shape, an ocean theme. The interpretation is mine and it's right. The prompt might inspire me to pull stuff from my stash, like my Ocean Commotion sentiment pack. While I'm thinking of the theme or the prompt sea glass, I'm also thinking, oh, this stencil reminds me of the shape of sea glass. Now, what I interpret, it might be very different than you. Both of us are right. You go where the prompt leads you, and that makes it right. I also pulled napkins with sea themed. I also pulled other stencils with sand dollars and starfish. That's what the prompt does. So let's get started on this page. So with the prompt sea glass, I love that light aqua color of the traditional sea glass. It's probably the color that most of us think of when we hear the term sea glass, that very light blue. So I'm grabbing some bright aqua, some neon green, which adds a very interesting effect, and some turquoise. I also have some white gesso off the side. And I'm going to stencil through this stone increase stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. And I've kind of put it at an angle just to do something a little bit different. I've gessoed the substrate, the page that I'm working on. And then I'm just putting this on, and I'm mixing the paint wet on wet right on the makeup sponge, and then stenciling through the stencil. I'm covering the entire page. So here, the prompt, I'm going with the color that it gave me. As I put this on, I'm mixing the colors and really trying to get what in my mind is that sea glass color. Now you might have a different color in mind, and that might be absolutely right for you. So our response to those prompts is very individual. So don't compare your page to a prompt to somebody else's. Now the prompt is there to get us started, to give us an idea, to break that blank page. Where the page ends up, sometimes it ends up in a totally different place, and that's okay too. The prompt, think of it as the starting gate. I'm just adding more color, building some variation to my background. So wherever the stencil material is, that's going to stay the white gesso. So I'm going to get contrast on this page. And I'm using, as you can see, my 12 by 12 stencil. And I'm just taking my time building up to the level, to the color that I want. So there we have it. Does that remind you of sea glass? It did for me. Now I put the stencil back on, and I grab this bubble stamp that I have, and I am putting on Prussian blue acrylic paint, and I'm just stamping through the stencil. This is just adding another layer of color on top. It's a very subtle, fine stamp, but it's adding a little bit more interest to my very simple but very beautiful background. Now, to help myself out here, I could have taped my stencil down so it wasn't moving, but here you see me holding it down and trying to stamp with one hand and making it a little bit awkward. If when you get to the end of your project and you look at it and it doesn't read that prompt, that doesn't mean that you failed. That means you used the prompt to get yourself going, which is the whole purpose of any of these creative challenges. So don't compare yourself to others and go with what inspires you. As I said at the beginning, I am only planning to do from, 20 to 40 ICADs. I don't plan on doing the full amount. I'm giving myself some grace, some leeway in this so I can be successful. I absolutely love this. I love the colors, the shades that are there. Now I'm going to edge my page, and I'm using my angle brush and acrylic paint and just going around with, I believe it's the Prussian blue paint. I'm just framing my page. And if you are just starting to watch me with the ICAD challenge, I'm using card bases here to use as my substrate instead of the index card because I have a lot of them and I just wanted to use them up. Now I'm putting this into this little envelope and so I can keep everything else, all the other pages clean. And now I want to do some shading on all of these pebbles, sea glass shapes. And yes, I do end up going over all of them, just adding a little bit more dimension. So that takes a little bit of time, and I don't do it all on camera. You could do some, you could do all. Again, there's lots of decisions along the way, and you as the creator gets to decide what you're going to do. I am honestly thinking here that maybe I shouldn't have shaded them. I liked it before. Two ways of going. Both are right. Sometimes when you're working off prompt, you just have to start. Now here I have my fine line bottle, fine line applicator in gold, and I'm outlining every one of my pebbles or sea glass. I picked the gold. It looks really good against that blue teal sea glass color. It's also dimensional. When it dries, there's a little bit of dimension there. You just go very slowly. There, can you see? And it's also adding my favorite thing. I'm adding some bling. And I liked it much better when I had outlined it with the gold than when I had just shaded it. Now I did try to outline it with white, and it didn't have any zip to it. I didn't like it as much as the gold. So the fine line applicator bottle, I have taken just the regular Liquitex Basic Gold. I put it in and I add water, and I just trial and error to get the consistency that comes out without having to really squeeze the bottle. At one time I used my fine line applicator bottles a lot, and then like most of us, we moved to something else. So we're with the teal over here and the yellow, they're next to each other on the color wheel, so they're going to look great together. So I did the middle part, and then I'm doing each of the sides so I don't put my hand in the wet paint. And I'm not trying to be so particularly precise here either. If you're doing the Index Card a Day Challenge and you've done the prompt sea glass, I'd love to see it. Please poke it in, or pop that picture and post it in my Facebook group, Art Journaling and Mixed Media Creations. Look at this. OMG, I love it. So while I set that aside and let that dry, I am preparing for my focal image. And I'm taking a combination of burnt sienna, orange, and yellow oxide, I believe, I grab out. And I'm just painting on a sheet of copy paper. I believe this is something from the recycle bin. I'm just getting a good base color. I don't care that this is completely, I want the randomness of it. And I've picked this color. I think I'm going to show the colors or color wheel again. But I picked this color because this is opposite the teal color on the color wheel. And so it's going to show really well against the background. There we go. It's across the color wheel. So I said the prompt made me think of my sea stencils. So I'm stenciling this starfish with black on the colored background. Now I could have stenciled it and then painted it, but this way the black is really crisp. So I am just going to stencil out a few of these starfish. Now TCW has a lot of stencils that are sea themed, and you can get the starfish in a variety of sizes, which helps you pick the right size for whatever project you're doing. So I'm doing that. I also have a starfish stamp, and I'm going to stamp with it. So I'm going to fill this sheet between stenciling and stamping these starfish, and then I'm going to bubble cut them out and audition them on my ICAD to see which one works best. Which one do I simply like better? And I'm doing the whole page because once you have the paint out, once you've dirtied the stencil or the stamp, the cleanup's the same. So anything that I don't use on this project goes into my bin, and it's there to be used on another project. Off camera, I do spray my stamp and stencil and I clean them. It's really important to get that acrylic paint, oh, there we go, out of the stamp. And this is my Murphy's oil soap. And it's so much easier to do now than afterwards when it dries on it. So I just clean it up. Now I went to my sentiment pack, Ocean Commotion, and I'm flipping through. I keep all the sentiments like this in one sheet, and then it allows me to flip and find the sentiment that works for what I'm doing. And then I can size it on my computer with my printer settings, either bigger or smaller. In this case, I made it smaller so that it would fit the ICAD size. And I picked the one, We Dream in Colors, Borrowed from the Sea. And here I'm just playing with the orientation. Here's a couple of the big ones. How would I put that? Didn't quite fit. Then I'm trying with the small ones. once they're cut out like that and you have options, you can just take pictures along the way to help you decide. I decided to take these small starfish and swoop them across the page so your eyes go across the page and the sentiment underneath. And I stuck to an odd number because odd numbers always seem to look better on pages. So to glue this down, I am going to use my fluid matte medium, which is my preferred adhesive. These are going to go into my focal image bin that I keep on my side desk. And when I'm doing a page, I'll grab that bin out and flip through and find something that goes on whatever page I'm working on. So there's my focal images. And I have one that's sea related. Right at the back, you can see the sails of a ship. So I leave everything in place and glue things down one at a time. And you're going to want to make sure that whatever color you have down there is permanent and isn't going to move and is completely dry. So when you look at this, do you think the prompt was sea glass? Maybe not. Maybe you thought it was sea or starfish. It doesn't matter. The prompt was there to get me going, to start the race. Once you start the process, sometimes the page takes over. I did ask my husband what prompt he thought I was responding to, and he said, well, pebbles. And I said, okay, that was pretty close. So and of course, one of the things when you're working from prompts, keep it simple. I find sometimes I have so many ideas, I try to incorporate everything onto one page. That's a mistake. Limit and edit your choices, pick one or two and go with it. In this case, I picked the starfish, the color of the sea glass, and the shape. And the rest was kind of dictated as the page evolved. So once that was dry, I'm just taking black acrylic paint and edging it. Now that there's black on the starfish, on the sentiment, the blue shading that I didn't seem to be enough. It wasn't dark enough, didn't have enough weight on the page. Now this makes a beautiful ICAD. It would also make a beautiful card. So in doing these, I'm also trying out or creating ideas for potential card ideas down the road. I can flip through my index card today and say, oh, that would make a nice card. Change the sentiment as you need, write a message inside. Here I'm just adding a little bit of shading as part of the overall finishing project. If you are enjoying my videos, if you find them helpful, please help me grow my channel by hitting that subscribe button, click on the bell, select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. Also, leave me a comment. Share the video with your creative friends. Thank you so much. I'm just outlining it with my black Posca pen. And there we have one more ICAD done. So working from a prompt, make it your own. If it inspires you, go with it. If it doesn't, give yourself the freedom to say pass. Go the way you're interpreting it is the right way, even if others are doing it a different way. And if your end product doesn't scream that prompt, that's okay too. Because the prompt isn't always the destination. Sometimes the prompt is simply the starting point. It's not too late to start the Index Card a Day Challenge. Go to Gypsy99 on Instagram or daisyyellowart.com and find the prompts and join in. Adding a little bit more shading here on the outside of the starfish, just to make the starfish stand out a little bit from my sea glass background. As I'm looking at this now, I could have used the new TCW, I believe it's called Seafoam stencil butter through that same stencil. The possibilities are endless. The goal, to create and have fun in the creative process. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, go get creative.